Sorry, Dana. Welcome everybody to the Isle Palm City Council. This is July 24th, 6 p.m. I'd like to acknowledge that both the members and the press and the public were duly notified in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The first item on our business is going to be our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and the roll call. Join me if you care. If my girlfriend here, she'd do the same thing. She always corrects me. Dear wise and loving Father, thank you on behalf of all those who gathered here today. I thank you for everything you have blessed us with, life itself, our health, and this island paradise we call home. I ask that you look over those who may be sick or who have lost loved ones. As we pass the peak of our busy summer season, I ask that you look after our residents, our employees, our visitors, and especially those in public safety while they protect us year-round 24/7. I thank you for our freedom of speech and our liberty, and ask you for your guidance and wisdom in our governing our island to work together in making the right choices that affect our island and our residents. Not only for now, but for future generations. I ask that as we enter this 2018 hurricane season, that not only our island, but all coastal communities be spared the devastation of such storms. It is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Marie.
Yes. Councilmember Bell.
Here.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Here.
Councilmember Perez.
Here.
Councilmember Peaphorn.
Here.
Councilmember Boyd.
Here.
Councilmember Rice.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Mayor Carroll.
Here.
Assistant Interim Administrator Borgoso.
Here.
And Attorney Copeland.
Thank you very much. Next order of our business is the approval of the previous council meeting agenda, meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I had one
Do I hear a second?
second.
Okay, yes ma'am, discussion.
And I'm trying to pull it up, but in the part where they were honoring Leola Hanbury, and it said that it was more about Ms. Morris than it was about Leola. It said Ms. Morris was did so much for the city and blah blah blah.
Got the name wrong.
Yeah, I think it just needs to be switched to Ms. Hanbury.
Thank you.
Thank you for your correction. Any other corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? None. Citizens' comments. And Jim Rye is moving to the podium. Name and address, please.
James Rye, 3904 Cameron Boulevard, The Palms. I kind of have an older copy of Robert's Rules of Order here. It's a 75th anniversary edition. And I don't know how we're going to conduct this meeting tonight when we haven't even fulfilled the first item on the agenda. Has this new city attorney been elected and appointed and sworn in?
She is an assistant city attorney.
I thought this was just public comments, but I'm just...
Yes, sir.
So she said she was the assistant,
Yes, sir.
and she's moved up to the...
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just wanted clarification. Some of you may know me more than others, and I was kind of taken back tonight when one of the sitting council members says, "Is this the new Jim Rye?" Never seen me in a coat and tie before, and it's almost too funny because I know staff knows me quite well, and the employees know me quite well, and the department heads know me quite well, and for the time that I spent in the pro bono service of the island, it's just amazing that would happen. So anyway, the real point that I was coming down to talk to tonight is about the first item on the Ways and Means Committee agenda, A1, about the national search for the firm to replace our city administrator, our fire, our police chief, and our public, to give some help to our public works department. It's just, it seems like the Isle of Palms has no problem spending money on consultants. And sometimes I wonder the return on the investment of the tax dollars that we spend for consulting and consultants on the island. It really it baffles me sometime. And I think it's important to remember now that the minutes are online and the videos are now online, that those of us who care and those of us who can't make it often watch those and during some downtime when things aren't so hectic. There's many things that can be said, but the bottom line is that the definition that I know of luck is when preparation meets opportunity, is the definition of luck. It's not just flipping a coin to see what happens. And I've been waiting 17 years for this opportunity. I applied for Linda Tucker's job when she left Sullivan's Island. And that was a couple years after I received my master's degree in business administration from Charleston Southern University. And this tie tonight represents the Board of Visitors tie for the Charleston Southern University. And I fly it with pride. But to think that I missed the opportunity to maybe save the tax dollars money on the Planning Commission level because I didn't make the first cut to even be considered as one of the top 3 people is pretty remarkable. And the reason was given that I was too green, and my team that I put together didn't have much experience. And I just think that it's just sad to think that an opportunity like this might slip away again. For those who know me and know me well, they know that I don't boast. I don't keep track. I don't keep a scorecard. I try to speak my mind. I try to be brief. I try to stay within my 3 minutes. I try to address the council. And it's just frustrating sometimes when new people come in, and we all have to start someplace. You know, you don't start out being a CPA, okay? And you're lucky if you can get that designation to become a certified public accountant. And that means something. And come in, we're just getting started. You haven't missed anything yet. Go ahead and have a seat. So in just, I really am interested in the job. And the reason why many of you may or may not know that I ran against Dick Cronin for mayor as a write-in candidate for his first election. Many of you may not have not known that. There was a full-page ad run in the Island Eye News. And I ran as a city council member as a write-in candidate at one point as well. So I've never held a elected position, but I've done a lot of at-will pro bono work for the city. And I'm proud of that I've been able to do that. I moved to the Isle of Palms in 1984 to start my business career. And I lived in a sea cabin. That was back when they were $58,000. But people don't realize it. I mean, it's just a FEMA stack of shacks is what they are. And they made it through Hugo, and they made it through the next storm, and they're probably going to make it through another storm. So my 3 minutes is probably up for tonight, but I could go on for hours. But I'll submit my official remarks to the clerk for the record.
Thank you, Jimmy. Yes, ma'am.
I give a couple of photos. I think most of you know my home. Is it okay if I pass this out?
Absolutely.
Just there?
Thank you.
So my name is Christine Donovan. I live at number 31 26th Avenue. This is 3 houses from Waterway Boulevard. First, I want to thank every council member for your personal response to my letters. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the work that you do. And I'm here to plead for common sense in the setting and enforcing of the parking laws, the parking ordinances. I understand the parking ordinances. I also understand that the parking area I created in front of my house for my visitors is now illegal without a parking pass. So these parking regulations were in effect, they've been in effect for, this is the third summer, right? From that. However, my visitors were never ticketed in the previous 2 years. This year they have been. This is also true for many of my neighbors on the backside of the island. These rules were not enforced in areas that there was not a problem last year or the year before. They are being actively and even aggressively enforced this year. Something has changed, and it's not an increase in parking problems on the backside. I've been told that the officers cannot be instructed when and where to ticket vehicles, and that they must uniformly enforce the law. Again, something has changed because the ticketing in problem-free areas is something new this year. So we each receive 1 book of passes per year, and I understand that this may increase to 2 books of passes for a total of 60. This will not work. I've hosted a Bible study at my home on Wednesday mornings for 3 years. There are usually 5 to 10 cars at my home on any given Wednesday. My neighbors are aware of this and have always been agreeable to my Wednesday visitors parking in front of their homes. In addition to the hassle of everyone having to pick up a pass and filling it out each week, this would use approximately 280 passes per year. Just this week, I had 2 daughters visiting from Asheville Wednesday through Sunday. With my son coming over from Mount Pleasant each day to bring the cousins, we needed 15 passes just for this past weekend. 60 passes per year won't work, and most importantly, they're not necessary. There is a parking problem in some areas, Front Beach and near the marina. There is not a problem on the backside of the island. I'm not asking for a special exemption. I'm asking for common sense to prevail in the writing of and the enforcement of the parking ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Phim with Tidal Wave Water Sports, and I'm just going to take a brief moment. We are, as Tidal Wave, we are announcing that we're having a Residence Day, September 8th. This Residence Day is going to be free for all residents to use any activity that we have. We will be asking for donations, and all donations are going to go to MUSC Children's Hospital. I've been working with Randy and Rusty Streetsman on this, and can't wait to see you all come out. We're going to start taking reservations as of August 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Is this on?
You don't need it.
No. Hello, I'm Bill Campbell, number 34, 42nd on the Isle of Palms. Several weeks ago, the house immediately in front of us was sold. The new owners live in Seattle, Washington. The property is now under property management and is a short-term rental vacation. What a difference it has made to us. For over 36 years, we have enjoyed the company of full-time neighbors on the Isle of Palms. 36 years. It was that sense of small-town, laid-back island community style that attracted us to the area. The beach was just an attraction. It was the island style that grabbed us. Back in those days, we accessed the island via the Ben Sawyer on Sullivan's Island. We got our water from the artesian well behind the furniture store on Coleman Boulevard. It took us almost 3 hours to exit the island on Sundays because the island traffic was stopped with sailboats transiting the intercoastal waterways. For the longest time, we went without a phone at the beach house because we wanted to preserve that layback style. Boy, those days are long gone. We are concerned about the deterioration of our street community by vacation and short-term renters. Now, half of our street is rental property. Short-term vacation renters have a different attitude. It's understandably a short-term attitude. We now have different visitors every week and every weekend. These visitors are not cognizant of our parking regulations, and when someone, me, informs them of their illegal activity, they want to argue with me. Somehow, I'm the bad guy. In most cases, they're prepared to flaunt the law because they believe the chances for fines are slim. People lease short-term properties to party and have a blowout good time. Consequently, noise around the pool area is only controlled with a call to the police. They don't care about your lawn, your sprinkler heads, or their tire tracks they leave in your lawn. Their response, "Hey man, it's the beach." Now and then, the short-term renters have their off-island friends visit their rental beach house, and then all hell breaks loose. They'll park anywhere. I must tell you a story that happened to me today. There was a handicapped parking spot at the end of our street, beside the dunes on 42nd. This morning I saw a woman position her moped on a kickstand in the handicapped spot and proceed to the beach. I caught her attention as she walked to the shore. She maintained that she was not illegally parked because her moped was still on and not in the off position. It was still going. She claimed she was legally stopped. I responded that I would let the police decide. She quickly mounted the moped and drove away, not happy. Golf cart behavior is horrible. Anyone who can walk can drive. I've seen 5-year-olds behind the wheel. No one stopped for stop signs, and erratic driving is the norm on our side streets. One fellow has an air horn on his golf cart that would shut down a semi, and he used it liberally because he thought it was funny. I finally spoke to him, and he's stopped. Others have rap music that they wish to share with the entire world. God. I would like to see mandatory signage on the inside windshield of a golf cart indicating that the driver must be at least 16 years of age, licensed, insured, and registered to operate, or be subject to a $250 fine or some crazy, expensive fine. Automatic. Because everyone I've talked to, I didn't know that. But some sort of sign that is stick on the inside of the windshield there, say you must have type thing. Some sort of tag or number should be affixed to the cart so one can quickly take a picture of the offending cart and email it to the livability police for quick processing. Otherwise, they win again. There's no way the livability police can assist in this specific matter. I believe it is the role of the IOP residents to support our rules. When I talk to our neighbors, they look at me and they say, I don't want to be a grumpy, ugly neighbor. And I say, if you don't report it, then it never happened. And so everyone's out of luck at that point. In addition to golf carts, what is the story on motorized hoverboards, electric Hot Wheels, motorized lawn chairs? Yeah, that's right, motorized lawn chairs. Somehow they get the little hoverboard thing behind the lawn chair and scoots along through there. I couldn't believe it. It's fantastic. These vehicles can touch speeds between 15, I'm guessing of course, 15 to 25 miles an hour. I'm too big for one. We're out of control. Am I the only person who is concerned about this? Imagine how relations with your neighbor could change if they flipped every weekend, or if adjacent properties remained unoccupied for weeks or months at end. I'm talking about the renters now. The sense of community on the street quickly deteriorates. The wear and tear on properties from vacation and short-term rentals is extremely high. Yes, the short-term money looks good, but the long-term cost is exorbitant. The net difference is not worth the cost, and the negative impact on the street community is fantastic. It's changed our street already. From a social standpoint, we'll no longer have Christmas parties for our neighbor that lived across the street, and we won't invite them over. No birthday parties, no group trips to the Charleston Arts Festival, no neighborhood activities, no group trips to Second Sunday on King. It's just changed the whole thing. There will be no participation of these visitors to the city council meetings, and I know you all miss that. No community participation in sandcastle building, the 5K races, and other activities. Times are changing. These changes are ripping the soul from our community as I know it. The community is dissolving, and it's happening right in front of our eyes. Can't you see it? You know, a couple of years ago, my wife and I drove to New York City to visit our son. We followed the Jersey coastline. It was horrendous. No one was there. It was as if the area had been neutron bombed. No cops, no garbage men, no nothing, because it was off-season. The place was vacant because they were all rentals, and we weren't in season. We were horrified. This was a real shock to us, and I was determined not to let this happen to IOP. Does anyone here want to return to the old IOP? So, in closing, I would suggest a comprehensive pamphlet that addresses parking on the IOP. There would be a section for permanent residents, for short-term rental, long-term rentals, etc. Right now, when I go out to explain to somebody that it's illegal to do that, they say, where's a sign, or show me the... we get into an argument very quickly. I mean, it's stupid. There should be a comprehensive pamphlet you can say, read that. Signage on golf carts to reinforce legal responsibilities and a number or tag for quick identification. Ignorance must not be an excuse. Number 3, property managers must detail rental responsibilities and have them sign off on their understanding. If there's a complaint against the renters, should they immediately lose their damage deposit? That would cause some action, wouldn't it? Number 4, neighbors need to be advised of their rights and responsibilities. They must be active in maintaining social order. IOP residents should be able to photograph infractions and report them to the police for follow-up. I know that sounds pretty Orwellian, but I just don't know how you're going to do it otherwise. Short-term maverick rentals, I think, should be abolished. Let's build a community, not party central. And I thank you very much for your ears. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else? Citizens' comments? Going once? Going twice? Before we get into our standing committees, I'd like to point out a young man in the back who is a scout working on his Eagle badge, and he's here to learn civic duties, and this is what he's witnessing right here. We got 2 of them. All right. Thank y'all for being here, and this is how it works, and we're glad that y'all are here to learn. So thank y'all for being here. Okay, on to standing committees, Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Ways and Means Committee meeting was Tuesday, July 17th at 5 p.m. The minutes were approved. We had citizens' comments from Rebecca Stevenson regarding the farmers market. We had a brief discussion of the farmers market. Committee decided not to take any action. Another member of the committee came forward with a motion to relocate the farmers market. Therefore, the market will operate from the county park as it did last year. The next item was financial statement presentation by Treasurer Suggs. She stressed that the financial statement for June 30th, 2018 was preliminary and audited for fiscal year 18 budget. She informed the committee that the city would receive or accrue funds and maybe some invoices possibly through August reflective of fiscal year 18. The auditors will begin their work in September. General fund revenues were 99% collected and 96% expended. General fund cash was at $3,800,000, and that represented 35% of the general annual fund expenses. Municipal accommodations tax and beach preservation fee fund are running 2% ahead of fiscal year 17. Charleston County accommodation pass-through was down 16% from fiscal year 17. Local option sales tax are running 5% ahead of fiscal year 17. And then there was some discussion about the numbers. Under new business, we came up with a recommendation from the Personnel Committee for the award of a contract to the Mercer Group Incorporated for the recruitment of a City Administrator, Chief of Police, and Assistant Director of Public Works for maintenance and facilities in an amount not to exceed $39,000. And that motion passed unanimously. And do you want to deal with that now or just go through them all?
I think we should go ahead and go through them now. Do we have a motion to hire the Mercer Group so we can have discussions?
So moved.
Second.
And discussions. Maybe the chair of personnel can kind of give us a brief.
Okay.
I know your committee's still coming up, but just for this vote.
But as we've reported in the past, we have had an extensive look at various search firms. We whittled them down to about 5, and then each of us took one of the top 3, and rather than just look at their marketing materials, we made personal calls to some of the municipalities that had used them in the past. At our last meeting, that was all discussed, and we came to the unanimous decision that the Mercer Group would fit our needs best. It just so happened they were the least expensive, which was a nice thing, but that was not the reason why we chose them. So in going forward, we've asked the Ways and Means to approve the $39,000 proposal that they had given us, and we ask now that the full council approve the Mercer Group as our search firm for the city administrator position, the chief of police position, and the assistant public works position.
Thank you. Any
Mr.
other
Mayor?
questions? Yes, sir.
Just another comment, and this was made during the Ways and Means Committee as well, but for the level of positions that we are seeking and the importance of just the leadership that they're providing to the city, we recognized as the Personnel Committee, and I think the Ways and Means as well, that it's really important that we put the right amount of effort into conducting the search, and that we don't approach it lightly. This sentiment was echoed and really affirmed when we made these phone calls and spoke with other cities. Almost all of them had had bad experiences without working with the search firm, and so as we spoke to other cities about their experiences, unanimously they said it is really important that you work with a professional entity and that you go about doing this the right way. You're going to set yourself up for success, and yes, you may have some great candidates locally, but it really helps to have this professional entity walk you through the whole process.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Yes, sir.
But we're not bound to hire anyone that they would recommend, correct?
No.
Okay, thank
They
you.
will come to us with probably the top set of candidates. If we don't approve of any of those candidates, we don't even have to interview them. They will have a second set if we see someone that's interested there. If they don't have anyone in that first or second set, we send them back and say, you're not listening to us. This is what we need to have.
In the meantime, we can still consider local candidates.
We consider local candidates all through the process.
Okay.
The only difference is they will apply through the search firm rather than sending it to the city or to our HR director. They will send it to the search firm, and they will do the vetting and background checks and those sorts of things. So we don't have to go through that.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
nays? Hearing none, passes. Mercer Group.
Next item of business was discussion replacement of 2 AC condensing units which serve the training room and lobby of the Public Safety Building. Chief Graham reported that one unit was shot, other was failing, and additionally a lift truck will be needed to install one unit that's located on the roof. I would like to ask the administrator to refresh my memory. This is under the amount budgeted, right?
Yes, we are approving a not to exceed number of $15,000, which will be split between the police and fire department's maintenance budgets. Since the Ways and Means meeting last week, we've received additional 2 proposals. I don't have the numbers committed to memory, but we will be choosing the least expensive to go forward with the repairs as soon as you all approve that.
Thank you. So we approved it, the motion passed unanimously.
Yes, sir. So we would like to have a motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Let's get them cooled off at Public Safety Building. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Motion passes. Totally. Jimmy, I think you missed one.
Item 2.
Number 2.
2 conditioning units.
2.
Which one? Well, no, I'm going through this
Okay, I'm sorry.
first.
I apologize.
I follow the committee minutes.
I stand corrected.
That's right. That's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. There was no miscellaneous business. The next meeting date will be 5 o'clock Tuesday, September 18th. And we adjourned at 5:45 p.m. Now, going back to the agenda, and I'm going to call on the administrator again to help me with some explanation.
Sure, absolutely.
Some minutes. Item number 2, which wasn't in here, but we're going to discuss tonight. Report on annual purchase of beach path matting from Access Rec. Fiscal year 18 budget, state A-tax, public works, capital outlay, page 29, line 295, $60,000.
So this, we're requesting a motion to approve a purchase of beach path matting to replace the matting, the existing matting on 42nd, 9th Avenue, and 30th block, which are heavily used. This was budgeted in FY18. $60,000 were included in the state aid tax fund. We were wrapping up the fiscal year purchases and went ahead and made that purchase. But because of the amount, it requires city council approval. So we're requesting a motion. The total amount is $59,999.92.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Just clarification, what we're asking for, the heavy mats, not those light blue ones that tear away when the emergency vehicles drive over them?
No, and Donnie can speak to the reason why we're moving to the lighter blue mats. We believe that the difference between the lighter blue and the darker blue, and there's no difference in the material or the quality, it's just associated with the location where they're placed. But Donnie, can you help me? And
If I may.
And also, I'm sorry, a quick comment. The purchase, these mats are wider than the existing matting that there is now.
There have been complaints that they're slippery. There are skid marks on those from vehicles going over them. They're torn completely out of the ground right now, and they haven't been able to sustain, just in less than 2 months, the vehicles driving over them, right? So, you know, for what it's worth, the heavy-duty blue ones have held up. The ones that have been there for 2 to 3 months, Donnie? Right, I mean, they're completely torn loose at this point.
Let's hear from Donnie.
Let me finish, please.
Thank you.
Okay.
Finished. So, in my opinion, first of all, the base underneath, and I would suggest that every council member go to 9th Avenue. There's a light blue mat. If you go on the landward side of the toe of the primary dune, that light blue mat is identical to that dark blue mat at 42nd Avenue in density, no slipping. But once you go across the toe of the primary dune, you will see it moves. It moves with the loose sand underneath. Those dunes are moving daily with the winds. The dark blue is just an older generation of the same mat. Same materials, identical materials, just a different generation, different color. I feel like that the light blue mat at 41st Avenue, there's one at 41st Avenue, it's about 8 or 9 years old. That was the first access wreck. Still in existence and still working today. Again, my opinion is the base underneath is what creates the hardness. When you get out there on 42nd Avenue specifically, that was 2 mats that we added as a trial. My opinion when we added them was it was going to do exactly what it's doing, and it's high maintenance. They're loose. The soft sand and the staples aren't deep enough to penetrate to the harder, so it's those mats move. That is a vehicular emergency access. So my opinion to staff at the during last year's budget was, let's try the 6 foot wide. That gives me the wheelbase for the emergency vehicles, both police and fire, when they do their daily patrols. that you won't have any crowning, shouldn't have any crowning. I will tell you that once you get out on those infant dunes, you're still going to have the movement and the instability of those mats out there.
They're 4 feet now, right?
4 feet now.
Any other questions for Johnny, since we have him up front?
I was just gonna say, so the mats now are 4 feet. They're going to be, the new mats will be going 6 feet.
We got.
Is there any way, and I'm not even sure the possibility of it, and we discussed it, is the base layer. Is there any way that we can apply to OCRM or to try to change that base layer or to stabilize it, and because it is now becoming perhaps a hazard?
So I will just say that until we get off twice-a-week garbage, we're going to have to endure these mats this summer. As soon as Labor Day gets here, then I can get the skid steer and we can level what's there. And if some harder dirt by some gets pushed out a little bit, then so be it. But we'll level it and get it level and put the 6-foot mats there. I'll try to reuse some of those mats on the 31A, the existing mats that are there now. Put them on 31A. It's such a long trek to the beach at 31A. And it's heavily used, and that was my anticipation, was to create a more safer type beach path at 31A, and it gives a beach path in the middle of the island.
Thank you, Connie. Anybody else from Johnny? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was out at 42nd, and it does bubble up in spots, and so you're saying that's due to the location of where you are. Because it seems like a hazard to everybody, not just anybody who's disabled, but anybody who happens to be walking if you have these bubbles.
So there's 2 issues. There's the crowning on the older, darker blue, and that's from the wheelbases being pushed and the sand pushing underneath, even though it's harder. When you get out there to the infant dunes, the last 2 mats, that sand is so soft, the staples that are trying to hold it down aren't deep enough. They're not provided. We could put rebar down there, but I don't know that it would be real safe. And it's still going to do some movement. I'm hoping that the 6-foot wide mats will soften the amount of times it moves, but you get high winds, that sand moves around. Those dunes move around from year to year.
Do you think it's, even so, better to have the mats than not have the mats if they're bubbling up and causing issues?
Well, going in, I knew that the mats would be a lot more, and I look at it from a maintenance point of view, that those mats closer to the beach were going to be problematic. And they will continue to be somewhat problematic. But there's a fine line. You want to try to help your residents and at the same time provide some sort of access, especially for those with handicaps. So we're going to do the best we can, and a 6-foot mat will give us, I think, a little bit better opportunity. There will still be maintenance involved.
Donnie, one last question for me. So what you're saying is no matter which mat, the Moby mat or the access mat, they're going to move in that sand no matter what.
So as discussed in department head, probably the best option would be what Douglas had referred to and we looked at, and it's a 4x4s, 6-foot wide 4x4s chained together or linked together. But you're talking 6 figures. And then from my point of view, that's still going to be maintenance because the sand's going to penetrate on top and you're going to be constantly trying to blow it off to give your residents opportunity to get back and forth to the beach.
Any other questions?
Is there any way, and I'm not sure what the placement works and how it does work, but for if we have, where we have these mats, for sand fencing in those areas a little bit more to try and decrease some of that flow or some of that wind and try to knock down some of that, or?
That would be above my pay grade, sir. I don't know the answer. That's OCRM, that's not me.
I
think that if you build a dune, that dune is going to naturally try to connect itself.
Encroach on it.
So I think I don't know that would help the matter.
I have a follow-up. You said six figures, like six figures 100,000 or six figures 500,000?
I don't think it was.
Wasn't a quote, you did the measurement with the 4x4s at Lowe's times the number of feet, which gave us the number of 4x4s.
I don't think it was dramatically more than the mat, than the
Cost per square foot of mat.
some labor to it. I think the materials were roughly the same, but it would be more labor intensive. So I don't know that it was exponentially more expensive. But the thought would just be lined up 4x4s with a steel cable through it that pulls it tight, and that wouldn't allow it to heave. You know, it would undulate, but it would be a rigid surface that vehicles could go down. Donnie did talk about the problems of if you had to remove it. It would be significantly more stable, but it also would be significantly more challenging to remove in the event of a storm. So there's some trade-off there in terms of, you know, being more stable.
So,
Carol?
And if my memory serves me, because a woman came with that to one of our council meetings years ago with a, actually with one to show us, but it doesn't drain, the sand doesn't go through, so you'd have to constantly blow it off and clean it off.
That's a different.
Okay.
That's a third material like what you've gotten samples of work.
Right.
It's like 4x4 panels that you snap together.
Yes.
So
Okay.
that's still
So this is
a third
different.
thing.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was.
Okay. Yes, sir.
How many heavily traveled emergency paths do we have? When I say heavily traveled, I know the one
You
at
have
42nd is heavily traveled.
5th, 9th, 25th, 42nd, and 53rd.
Would it not be wise to look at a more lasting technology for those sites, or at least some of those sites?
For the most part, Fifth Avenue's got hard-packed sand shell from different applications. There is no mat there. 9th Avenue's got sand shell to the landward toe of that primary dune, and I've got one mat going across that primary dune to the toe on the beach side. 25th again is hard sand shell. 42nd is the one that's the most problem.
Yeah.
And 53rd is very hard due to heavy equipment over the renourishment. That was their entrance site, and so there was stabilization allowed to be put there as well. So it's really just the one beach path at 42nd Avenue that's
Is it not worth looking at something different for that one? Like I said, I'd encourage anyone to look at it. I mean, there literally are tire skid marks on it from kicking it up and causing it to buckle, and I think the 6-foot helps. I don't think it'll eliminate that problem, and I think we'll be looking at replacing it again in another year.
Okay, well, let's...
I mean, the other one has lasted, the first initial
Right.
one has lasted for years and years.
That's right.
So.
We are, I'm sorry, we are having constant conversations at staff level about what options we have to make sure that this is, that it lasts more. So just know that we are having those conversations, and during the busy summer season, it's something that we really can't tackle.
Understood.
But it is something that we want to look at and try to find a way to change it.
Okay. All right, very good.
The last thing, just so you know, the difference in cost between the two was about $10,000.
Okay. No more discussions. All those in favor going forward with this purchase of access right, by saying aye?
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none? Unanimous.
Okay, next item on the agenda, consideration of an award, of the award of a contract to Parkland for an amount of $58,939.25 for 5 replacement kiosks with accessories in the budget state ag tax fund, page 29, line 200, $70,000. So it's under budget.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a second and a first. You made the move. We had a second from Ryan. Did I hear?
Sure.
Okay. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor. We've got we've got two different figures.
We have entertainment here too.
Yeah. In the city council there's one figure, and then the memorandum, there's a different figure.
You should have a revised agenda.
The correct figure is 58.
58.
Okay.
58,939.25.
Okay.
That is the correct number.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
And we are requesting this to be approved as a sole source contract and award, and you've all received a memo from me explaining why we're making that request.
Keep them consistent all the way across.
Correct.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passes unanimous.
Okay, final is a report on the purchase of 2 AC heating units from Berkeley Heating and Air in the amount of $20,750. This is capital projects fund for the recreation center. This is different than the previous one that we looked at under item 3. This is a capital projects fund, recreation, page 23, line 62. The amount is $30,000.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. I don't see Norma.
I can explain.
Yes,
Norma
ma'am.
Dean is not here today, but she did report that these units are 14 years old. This has been budgeted in the capital projects fund, like Councilmember Ward stated, and it is under budget, and it is under the threshold, so I have the ability to approve purchases up to $25,000 if they've been included in the budget, which it has. So we're just reporting this purchase to you all. We don't need a motion.
Very good. Thank you.
I'll withdraw my motion.
And
Withdraw my second.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Passes.
Okay.
Keep them cool.
Chairman, that's the end of my report.
Thank you, sir. Public safety.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Public Safety Committee met at 5 p.m. Monday, July 2nd in the City Hall Conference Room with council members Bell, Ward, myself, our chiefs, our interim city administrator, and our city clerk. Citizens' comments included Elizabeth Campson of 32 Intercoastal Court, who thanked the committee for its efforts in protecting the residential neighborhoods around the marina, and Chris Donovan, who we've heard from tonight as well, who has also written council members and asked that growth and change, as we grow and change, we do not sacrifice friendliness or common sense. In old business, we considered the managed beach parking plan. And I believe the RFP for the fabrication and installation of new signs has by now likely been advertised, and bids were to open on July 23rd, with staff making recommendations on that. As stated at the June meeting, we discussed parking booklets, and we had discussed the possibility of changing our setup for parking passes, but returned to as far as parking booklets versus a hang tag, returned to booklets of 30 passes, which cost us in total about $1.80 or 6 cents per pass. Hang tags, if we delivered a similar number, would be much more expensive, and the cost for the same number would be $23, even though they are slightly under $1. Even paper hand tags are fairly expensive, more expensive than you might expect. So instead of switching over from our systems, the chief's recommendation was to stay with the coupon booklets, which residents have already become accustomed to, and are easily visible to officers. But since the parking plan will now be enforced year-round, she has recommended giving residents 2 free coupon books each year, which our committee voted to approve, contingent upon finding a place in the budget where it can be funded without creating an over-budget condition. And so I guess we could go ahead and handle that right now.
Okay, so will somebody make that as a form of motion?
I will make that as a motion, giving that we adjust our policy, and I think we may need to adjust our ordinances as well, to give residents 2 free visitor parking booklets a year, as long as we can find the funds for that in our budget.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Is there any reason, and I don't think we've discussed this, we had a lot of discussion in this committee about booklets versus hang tags, but why can't the coupons be returned to the residents and reused?
Well, those are dated.
Well, that's, just depends on how you print these booklets, right? I mean,
But I mean, isn't that the whole point? You put the date on the, and put it in the window, and it's good for just that day?
as they are now.
Right,
Right.
right.
But the discussion was coupon booklets versus hang tag expense. You don't have to have a date on the coupon. Theoretically, I don't think people are counterfeiting coupons and sticking them inside their cars, right? So I don't know why, if we gave booklets out, that we couldn't come up with a scheme to have reusable coupons so that folks that need 200 don't have to keep going and spending money beyond the 2 coupon books. Just a thought.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
Well, or maybe, should we have Interim Chief Usry
Sorry, Chief.
discuss that?
No, no.
You knew you weren't going to get away with that on that Friday.
I know, and I try. Thought you guys had it under control. So yeah, there's no issue with that. It's just dependent on how City Council wants to approach that.
Right.
Initially, when we set the ordinance, they wanted to do that so that the coupons were set for use of 1 day. So that's the format that we went with. It's entirely up to you. We can make it so that there's no date. They can be good for 1 year for the residents. Since we're going to the year-round, that's fine. It'll just be a design change. And that may cost a little bit more, but we should be fine with the what we have budgeted in the FY19 budget.
And they do include, you have to write in the address.
Correct. The address
So-
is written, so it is specific to that home. So
So go ahead, Desiree, please.
I just have one question. So to make sure that I understand your proposal, are you proposing that you move from that 30 pass booklet to just 1 or 30 that are in a different material where people can fill in?
This is truth or dare for me. This idea just came to me, so it hasn't been well thought out. Okay, so I'm being completely honest here. Whether
So-
it's 30 or 10 or 15.
here, let me help you out a little bit, because
Please.
not a problem. This will be the first time I bail you out, and it's going to be the last. So with the coupon booklets, there is 30 in a booklet, so we could continue to give 1 or 2, just depending on what you guys want to do. If we use them so that it's a year-round and we print it so that it is, there's not a specific one date, and we can do it from January 1 through December 31st of whatever year we go, then it's good for that address, and they can just reuse it. If they determine that they've become worn and we can't read them when we go to do enforcement, then they'd have to go and get another booklet. Again, up to you if you want to give 2. The second booklet, according to ordinance, is $15 if somebody wants to purchase a second one. So
I'd like to make a motion that we.
That can't. Point of order. Amendment.
you have to amend the first one.
Yeah. Wind backwards. I'd like to amend the first one.
What do we just put on the first one?
Yeah.
And then you can go make another motion if you like.
So do we want to give 2?
Okay, so I agree with Councilman Bell as for making it our residents first, and I don't think we're doing that with what we've done. I kind of like the year-round booklets. So do we want to withdraw this motion and go for a year-round, or do we amend? I'm looking at our attorney on this one.
And the vote on the current motion would be cleaner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I have one more comment.
Yes, ma'am, please.
I almost feel like this should go back for a little more discussion. This feels a little vague, and I don't think that it's.
That's a good idea.
I was thinking the same, Carol.
That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
But in the meantime, we still got problems with certain neighbors having Bible class studies at their house, and they're getting ticketed. And we're not scheduled to meet again until September.
Mr. Mayor, if we can, if we can go through, and I don't know if there's any way that we can make a, I don't know if we're consensus as to eliminating the date on the booklet, but if we could make a motion to eliminate the dates, so everybody who has the booklets can go ahead and just keep on utilizing them as they have now, and just take them back while public safety goes back and works on this. I think would be great, and that's one of the things I've talked about with some of the residents who've had issues with this, is wondering why they have to keep reissuing them.
Well, procedurally, you have to get rid of the first motion, and then we'll entertain the second.
So do you want to get rid of the first motion?
Who made the motion?
We'll remove my motion.
And the second?
Right, that was me.
Okay. Now do we have a new motion? For a book that's reusable.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that the existing booklets not be dated.
Second.
Any other discussion on this?
Quick question.
Mhm.
Do you still want to provide an additional booklet to residents as requested for free? Right now, the ordinance, as the ordinance is written, they're entitled to one booklet and the additional booklet for $50.
Free.
Free.
Shouldn't cost residents a dime.
So may I, on that discussion point, yes, on the presumption that people might have thrown out the original booklets knowing that they were dated once.
Well,
So that needs to be included.
Okay.
Let's go with the chief first.
Okay. So now remember, because of what we've done, we have to go through December 31st right now. I don't know what our inventory is, so if you tell me I have to give 2 right now, you're going to put me in a pickle. I do have enough to go FY19 to make 2019 booklets so that there is no issue. We would be able to give 2 for everybody for the year of 2019. So I no longer have any 2018 money, and I only have a certain inventory left. But if we do go, as Councilmember Buchanan is saying, and go from here forward, just eliminating that one-day pass and make it so that it just goes to the rest of the year, then we can be okay there.
I think we're good there. Yeah.
We're okay.
Yes, sir.
Do we know approximately how many citizens receive books?
I do not know the count in my head. If I had to give you a guesstimate, I would say we're about 480 have been issued that first booklet. We've only sold 4 booklets, though.
Less than 500?
Correct.
Sold 4 booklets?
We've sold 4 booklets.
It's a moneymaker.
You bought them. You just don't know it yet. No, I'm just kidding. It's 4 booklets.
Okay, so let's clarify this motion. This is a motion where we're taking the date off of there and going through the end of the year. Is that correct?
Correct. And basically, that's really just a directive to you, to your officer, saying that there does not have to be a date involved on that site.
Correct. And we'll do some education via social media to make sure that the public is aware that for the remainder of the year.
All of this is very detailed in the code.
Okay, yeah.
So, and that would be, you need to actually change the code. I don't think that you could give them a directive that's...
Right.
No, that would have to be an ordinance change to that.
We know that, and that's why it's going back
Correct.
to the committee.
We will.
Right,
We're
right.
just trying to get some relief right now.
Right.
That's right.
And what we can do is, I know it says one date, but if, and I'll speak with Julia regarding this, I mean, we could, I could issue a very long date. 24 hours could be a very long time.
So we will draft some language, suggested language that meets your guidelines. We will present that to the Public Safety Committee for further discussion, and if there's a recommendation from Public Safety, it'll come back to full council as first reading, because it does require amending the ordinance.
So again, is this something that we can go forward on the way it's?
Yes.
Yes.
It's an interim action.
Yes.
Okay.
Let the code mess it up for a few months. And
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Unanimous.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I may, I think one thing we have to realize, based on some of the suggestions that we've got and emails that we've got, that this may be just a bandage on some of our parking issues that we have, and don't let this be the end-all to our problem. I think we need to continually, the public safety needs to, like I said, we're our 3rd year into this, and like I always use the term whack-a-mole when we're always new problems are popping up. So I think public safety and we as the council need to continuously work this fluid ordinance and make it better for the residents. For situations like Christine, some of the other folks that we've gotten emails from. It was a birthday party that somebody did the exact same thing. So
right.
Canceling Bible study was not an option.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, and I will add that it had come to me after talking to Ms. Donovan and others that maybe $15 is too much for for those people that do want extra booklets, who may be in her circumstance where they have a lot of visitors, then maybe we should consider bumping that down.
Point of order, the issue's been decided.
Yes,
Okay.
we'll go back to public safety.
Okay, we'll discuss it at public safety. All right.
On to your
Okay.
report, yes.
I'm sorry, back to the rest of the report. Okay, we also heard an update on assistance for doctors on call to exit the island, for assistance to get off the island when responding to emergencies, and learned that a bill is before the General Assembly to allow, in our State House, to allow physicians to have rotating green lights on the dash of their vehicles, but that has been stuck in committee. The Education and Public Works Committee, and Interim Chief Estrie suggested that individual members of council and the mayor could send letters to city representatives in the legislature to support this bill. We have one particular situation where we have a stroke specialist who needs to get off the island. Otherwise, she informed us that the city's insurance carrier has advised against escorting a doctor off the island due to liability. We discussed surfing instruction on the beach, and we did pass a motion in regard to that, but I believe that events that have happened since, I don't believe that we're going to be presenting that to committee. I mean, to the full council. We received an update on emergency lights and sirens for volunteer firefighters from Chief Graham, and we did have a motion on that as well, but that is not ready for the full council to discuss tonight. We discussed the process for undertaking public safety building repairs and results of air quality testing. Douglas Kerr, Chief Graham, and our interim administrator have met and are working on an RFQ for design and construction oversight. The firm will be selected, would assist with preparation of the package to go to construction companies who would do the work. And that goal was to advertise that RFQ by the end of July. And at this point, that issue will be moving over to Real Property Committee with updates to the Public Safety Committee. Okay, we discussed traffic counts on 41st. We also discussed public safety at the marina relative to sharing codes for the gate between Morgan Creek Grill and the dock space owned by the marina operator in case there is any safety situations, so that the people right next to the gate are able to allow people to come through to safety if there's, for example, a lightning storm, which we had an incident with recently. And we also considered a revised chief of police job description that was shared with Personnel Committee. The police department partnered with Palmetto Pride and Charleston County Parks and Recreation for an Isle of Palms beach cleanup on Thursday, July 5th, and I believe that went really well. The committee had talked about not meeting in August, but I believe we may wind up having a meeting after all. So stay tuned on that. And otherwise, we do have a meeting set for 10 a.m. Wednesday, September 5th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public Works.
Yes, sir. I have a couple questions. I'd like to see the public safety address. When we were talking about vehicle parking and displays, and at one point, we used to have veterans used to park at along Ocean Boulevard. At one time, used to be able to park for free down there, or it was kind of not enforced. But there's one thing I would like to see if we can go ahead and try
by the VFW, right?
By in front of the VFW, we'll have you. And if something that we can try to approach again. And it's a city-owned street. I think we pretty much managed what goes on there. So I think it's great. It's goodwill to, if you have a placard on your license plate that says veteran, then I think they should be able to park for free along Ocean Boulevard in front of, in that area. If that is something you want to address, we probably have to go through legal, but something we can address
We can definitely
as well.
Bring that up at our next committee meeting.
One other thing was I had the opportunity over the 4th of July weekend to receive a couple of citations. One of them for parking in the front yard. And another one was was my son, who got a ticket for rolling through a stop sign on a golf cart, which he deserved. But the thing was, in both instances, officers indicated that council was trying to push for more citations. And I was trying to, I went back through my minutes of council meetings and couldn't find where we made any motions or agenda or to push for more citations on our residents or anybody. Now I wasn't sure if it was something that was coming out of a directive out of public safety, or what the push was for the increase, or the directive coming from why they were getting that directive. So.
That has not been something that the Public Safety Committee has voted on. We have had discussions around, in general, around enforcement. Well, in terms of speeding, I believe. But I don't believe there's been a committee vote to direct greater enforcement.
Could there be a perception that the committee wanted that to happen? Is that where these officers could have received?
I'll address it because it probably came from me. We have had an increase in the number of stops, significant year to year, and a decrease in the number of fined citations relative to the number of stops. And I specifically asked several months ago, why are we stopping this many people to write a warning? We either are potentially overly egregious in the amount that we stop, or it would seem to me at certain speeds that they would receive a ticket. And the amount of ticketing for speeding has gone up as a percentage of the stops. There's been no discussion to clamp down on writing additional tickets, and I don't think that's been the will of the Public Safety Committee at all.
Okay. And that was just the only discussion I got, was the fact that
yes,
it was,
to your point.
They said there was basically zero tolerance coming out of council, and I was like, I wasn't aware of it, and I was just trying to figure out where that is.
Yeah, and I'll further clarify. I think most of you know I live on 41st, and my point has been, we have been on record as a council, prior council, that we don't ticket below 35 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. And I said, two things occur on those roads and waterway. Rumor is it people drink when they go out on boats, and they're also towing 7,000 pounds behind. Right, so, I do have a public safety concern as to how we enforce, but I also think we should use some common sense along the way, and it's not a directive by council or by myself or anybody in any way that we want to clamp down and, start saying, let's just write a bunch of tickets.
Thanks. Okay, great.
I'm concluded with my
You
report.
concluded, you gave us your date, and maybe one in August.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
This August.
Yes, ma'am.
just one comment. I was reading through the minutes, the discussion of ideas for public transit and seasonal shuttle to IOP.
I'm sorry, I left that out. We did just kick off a discussion of a shuttle that I think many of us would like to pursue and potentially make a reality, a shuttle between Mount Pleasant and Isle of Palms. So.
Just one comment. I'm just glad to see that discussion is taking place, because for many years I've heard, we've tried it and it didn't work, and it doesn't work, we can't find a place for this. But those of us, all of us, who read that there are 250,000 new homes coming, those folks all want to come to the beach. So there is no way that we can find that many spaces on this island. It's got to be a collaborative between Mount Pleasant and Sullivan's Island and Isle of Palms, in terms of how do we get folks to come and have a nice day at the beach without having all of the cars. And it's going to have to come to some type of mass transit, whether it's a park and ride or where we provide jitneys ourselves in the island. And Rick and I were talking about years and years and years ago when the Southamptons had to do that very same thing. And they just said, okay, here's the number of parking places we have available. This is how we're going to have to pre-season be able to inform people of how many places there are and how do we control it. And some of the ways they did it was having actual passes that you have to purchase or be given before you come. And then they even got to the point where you have to have a bracelet to get on the beach. And I know we all say, oh, no, we can't do that. But folks, we're hitting 1 million. 1 million people are going to be on the other side of that bridge. And I know we don't want to have to do this on the island, but we only have 7 miles. We've got to start thinking of what do we do with 250,000 people in 10 years when we already have a problem now and it's only 85,000. So let's, in our discussions, just Mount Pleasant. That's just Mount Pleasant. That's not Berkeley County, that's not Dorchester County, that's not Volvo and all the others that are coming the same way. So in our discussions going forward, I think we really have to look at what are we going to do 10 years from now? And we have to start planning that now, because to get the ordinances in place, the passes in place, the signage in place, you can't do it that season. And we've kind of been working really hard to get some handle on what we've got now, but it's going to be triple what we've got and quadruple what we've got. So I'm glad to see that that discussion is taking place with CARTA, because they are the transit authority people, and we're going to have to find some way to work with them and our neighbors to solve this problem.
Mr. Mayor, just quickly, it's worth noting that some of us went to the MASC meeting, that we did start informal discussions with 4 of the council members from Mount Pleasant who were very willing to have those conversations with us, and they recognize the need.
And we might even have somebody in our audience from CARTA who's listening to us.
Yes, I know.
And I'll just add that we plan to focus on parking and traffic again with this fall and look at
But
some
thank you
wider issues.
for putting that on your agenda and keeping it on your agenda.
Great.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
Since I am the CARTA representative from the city. Briefly, they've tried routes here before. They hadn't worked. They've tried new approaches downtown. The park and ride has been extremely successful. The problem is getting a shuttle over here. Is where in Mount Pleasant would you find a parking place? A lot to park, 150, 200 plus cars. That's the problem. It's just a real estate. And CARTA has limited funds, and they have to really concentrate on providing the buses where they have riders. And in the past, we've had very poor record. It's going to take some creative thinking on our part. I welcome everybody's comments that I can take to the CARTA meetings. I have one next week. This is a long-term thing, but you know, the first step starts today. That's the main problem, is finding where to put the parking lots. There's one down on Bromley in Morrison, right? That's been really successful, and I believe they charge like $5, and then you ride for free.
You can ride for free.
Right.
$5 is for 24 hours.
Right, and it goes from 6 in the morning to 3 a.m. except on Sunday nights.
7 days a week.
Oh, 7 days a week, excuse me. And so, but that's been really successful because it helps all the food and beverage people downtown and all the MUSC people. And see, there's an attractive, ready-to-go, ready-made market, and we've got one here too. The problem is just finding that Morrison Drive property.
Susan, did you have a question?
Well, I'll just say that the Mount Pleasant representatives that we talked to have some ideas in mind.
Yes, we did talk about that this past weekend, and as we evolve our parking plan every year, I think we're going to start seeing a more increased usage and demand for CARTA.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
one other comment. You know, I know that we always hear, well, it didn't work in the past, but I think we've had such an influx of folks from other areas that are used to mass transit. They've used it in other areas. They want to find mass transit here, and we just don't have it yet. So
well, I'm on your team, and I'm fighting hard.
Great.
But it's just we don't have any service right now.
Yeah.
I think we're going forward. Now, speaking of going forward, Public Works.
All right.
Yes.
From parking and enforcement to drainage and garbage. So the Public Works Committee met Friday, July 6th at 10 a.m. All members were present and staff. we approved the previous minutes of the previous meeting, and then we reordered the agenda to discuss item C, which was discussion with Bill Shupp about the sale of his trash collection business. He has a gentleman who is interested in buying the business, and he came forward, Mr. Garrels, who also owns Chunky's, which is a beach chair and umbrella company. And we talked to him quite a bit, and he is going to come back to us after the season, and we will discuss further with him the possibility of him trying a trial year of that business. We had Director Pitts gave his departmental reports. Garbage was slightly up and debris was down, and we had one truck that was down for most of June, which might be the reason for that. We've got a new style of pooper scoopers at the Bark Park, and they've been very well received. And
well received.
Well received. That's good. It's better than than everybody hating them. So look at the upside. They're very picky at the Bark Park. So.
No fun.
Okay. So all is well in the departmental report. We discussed the Phase 2 drainage project, which is ongoing, and we are hoping the projected end date of that project will be the end of September. And underground storage tanks, that continues to be cycling through, and actually they were supposed to start work mid-July. Did they?
Correct, yes,
So,
they did.
yay.
Big time.
Boy, that has been a long time coming. We discussed the drainage issues at 32nd Avenue, which also just seems to be, constantly on the agenda. The county is now taking that over, and the consensus is a problem at the outfall, which is not draining properly, which we all know that, and that's what we're trying to accomplish in the next fiscal year, working on that project and getting that flowing. We had a long discussion about tents on the beach and tried to brainstorm some ideas on how to reduce the amount of tents that are on the beach, which that people are leaving. People will put them up, leave them, and they just come for the day and leave these tents, and it's a massive project for Public Works to get these removed. So we're trying to brainstorm on maybe rental or something. If we can reduce it somewhat, it would be great. We discussed the commercial dumpsters in Wild Dunes. That's a whole big issue, and I think we will look at that much further after the peak season here, and just different ways of revenue. Some of these rental houses have 7 and 10 trash cans, and there's just a whole myriad of issues there. We discussed the ditch at Cross Lane, which somebody would like clean more often, and now with the new fiscal year, Edie's will again do a cycle and clean the ditches and all the regrowth. We are meeting again Wednesday, August 1st at 9 a.m. And that is the end of my report.
Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I continue to have concerns, and I know you addressed in talking about the new potentially a new contractor taking over trash collection, and I'm really hopeful that we can continue to think outside the box, or try to think outside the box and outside the can about better ways to contain the trash, whether it's through a lid or really looking at what other cities are doing, because of the false sense of security I think people have of putting the trash in there, and it's, especially if it's getting towards the top, it's coming out, cans are getting dumped over. It's an issue with coyotes potentially being attracted to them. So
we discussed at length about having lids, and there's a whole lot of reasons why we can't at the moment, and but one of the main ones on the beach is that the equipment that they own to actually remove and empty the trash cans, it will not work with a lid. So it would require somebody with a big capital outlay, I think, to get all new equipment to empty. I mean, the little machine does work well. It's a shame that it is the way it is, but
Right,
yeah,
so
I
it-
will do some research and see what other cities are doing.
Right, that's not saying, we can't research
Right,
and figure out what.
yeah.
If people would just leave footprints.
Right.
And at the very least, I believe there's a need at Front Beach for more cans potentially, because from what I've been seeing, they get filled up way too fast, and that leaves it a potential issue. So.
Yes, sir.
I would suggest that you might want to consult with the administrator about a machine I've been looking into that they use in Myrtle Beach, and quite successfully in North Myrtle Beach and a lot of beaches in Florida and up north. She and I have talked about it at length. It's fairly reasonable, and it keeps these beaches clean.
And it's a trash removal?
No, it just for the problem. It doesn't scrape it. It just filters it, and it picks up stuff as small as cigarette butts. And
If it is okay with the chair, we
Yeah.
can include that into the next committee meeting agenda,
Yes.
and I can share the information.
it's pretty reasonable, I thought. Desiree and I thought it was pretty reasonable. Must be cheap.
Wow, okay, great.
Okay.
They're out of Connecticut.
Any other discussion
You're so
on?
smart up there.
Yeah, it is. Anything else further from Public Works?
That's it for me.
Okay, next meeting?
It's August 1st.
Okay. Recreation.
Next meeting's August 7th.
Good report.
I like your
you're
report.
fast.
You win.
Great report.
Personnel.
National Night Out.
Personnel Committee met July 5th, and a quorum was present. Meeting was called to order and acknowledged press and public were duly notified. Minutes of the regular meeting of June 7th, 2018 is submitted, passed unanimously. Under old business, we had the consideration and selection of a search firm for a recommendation to Ways and Means and Council, and this has already been approved. The Mercer Group will come on board to help us with the selection of the city administrator, the chief of police, and the assistant public works. We then went to the discussion of traits, characteristics, and qualities of an ideal city administrator. And drawing from several sources, including the Department of Labor online database, the committee created a list of traits that we thought would be ideal to have. The consensus of the committee was not to try to prioritize these, but to give the entire list to Mercer so that they can help us with what this should be. We then went to a discussion of proposed revisions to the job description for city administrator, and included in your packet is the results of that exercise. Therefore, I move that the revised city administrator job description, developed by our human resources officer, approved by the personnel committee, and reviewed by our labor attorney, be approved by council.
Second.
That's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Unanimous?
Right. We then went on to a discussion of traits, characteristics, and qualities of an ideal chief of police. And again, we had a comprehensive list that was made up, and it would be forwarded to the Mercer Group. We then went on to the discussion of proposed revisions to the job description for the chief of police. After revisions, inclusion of a statement relative to the Americans with Disabilities Act, and review by our labor attorney, the Personnel Committee unanimously approved the job description for the chief of police. Therefore, I move that the revised job description for chief of police, developed by our Human Resources Officer, approved by the Personnel Committee, and reviewed by our labor attorney, be approved by council.
Hear a motion?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Passes. Thank you.
There were no business, no new business. We then went to setting a date of August 2nd for our next meeting. This is depending on the schedule of the search firm. We want to be able to meet with them sometime in August, so it may not be on the 2nd, but it may be some other date. The June Safety Sweepstakes winners, Recreation is Carrie Farrell, Police Department, Joshua Phillips, Fire Department, Dana Burnett, Public Works, Joseph Washington, and I'm pleased to announce we have only one vacancy, and that is the Chief of Police.
Okay. That ends your report?
That ends my
Next
report.
meeting date?
August 2nd.
Okay. Real property. Now, Randy, Ryan set this standard here for brevity.
Yeah, I'm probably somewhere between that and cocktails, right? Okay, Real Property Committee met on July 3rd at 4 p.m. All members of the Real Property Committee were present, as was city staff. The first was citizens' comments. We had Rusty Streetman from Palm Boulevard. You've already heard from Michael Feim regarding a proposed event that he's hosting at the marina. Rusty is on the volunteer board of directors for MUSC, so it was a good marriage of the two of them to put forth this event for a good cause. So that was presented as well. We also entertained a group that wanted to introduce, as they have in downtown Charleston, a bike share program. Candidly, we had a lot of discussion on this, or a lot of presentation to us on this particular event, and Council Member Ferencz commented, I think accurately at the end, that is there a deterrence based on a lack of bike lanes that we start populating roads where we already have some issues with potentially too many bicycles, and it was left that they would just provide us additional information. We had Jay Clark from Morgan Creek Grill asked the committee to change the signage in the shared parking area to identify overflow parking for the restaurant. There's been continued discussion around the signage and the prohibition beyond just the paved parking area for Morgan Creek Grill as to just what accommodations the tenants at the marina do have for their respective businesses. In old business, we had the RFP 2018-01, Engineering, Design, and Permitting for Isle of Palms Marina Dock Rehabilitation. We received the bids. Long, complex, requiring city administration additional time, and what we asked is a more concise way for all of council to be able to review these and look basically in terms of columns to do an accurate comparison instead of comparing apples to oranges in the review of these, and we're still waiting on those results from city administration. We discussed, we've had an open issue with a piece of property at 1100 Palm in the right-of-way on Pavilion Drive. I don't believe we have any update on that either.
We do. We have, the survey has been completed and it has been submitted to the attorney who's handling that issue, and we're waiting for further advice.
Okay. Yeah, that particular issue has to do with the city's property line going through a physical building, so it's a little bit complicated and takes a little bit of work with real estate attorneys to sort through that. So we'll be addressing that, I assume, Desiree, at the next Real Property?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. We discussed ordinance 2018-09, an ordinance to allow public parking on lots located in SR1, 2, SR2, LC, GC1 zoning districts as temporary use. That was the original motion, correct, Desiree? Moving that.
I'm trying to
Get the numbers mixed up here.
2018-09.
Correct.
That ordinance, you all deferred indefinitely.
That one was deferred indefinitely, correct. So then, we've already had an update on the underground storage tanks. That work has begun, correct?
Correct. The work at the Public Works.
At Public
on
Works.
July 16th.
Yeah. And the marina one will be done post-season in the fall. Review and update on the marina tenants discussion. This one's a little more complicated. We had asked of city administration that we look at the lease terms of the 4 primary tenants of the city. That would be Tidal Wave Water Sports, Morgan Creek Grill, the Marina Joint Ventures, and Marina Outpost. We did receive all the requested information from them. Notable in those, I'm going to try to simplify and not complicate the discussion, was the adherence to lease terms for having proper insurance. As you might imagine, with the number of tenants we have out there, there was 24 tenants alone just for for Marina Joint Ventures, including individual slips. There are requirements that they have the city as named insured, so we're going through that process still, and it'll be addressed again in Real Property Committee to make sure that there's compliance. There are some that will need to bring their insurance policies into compliance with the leases, and we will be consulting with legal and city administration on what's the next step, providing they're not brought to compliance within the 30-day remedy period. The other piece of this, we've asked for physical copies of the leases, in that those subleases to, in particular, Marina Joint Ventures, which is the only entity with subleases, with the exception of Saltworks Deli in the Outpost. Those subleases generate income to the cities, that we have some knowledge of what the financial flow looks like, so that we know that we're being fiscally accountable and tracking that revenue back to the city and ensuring that the lease terms are being met. That too likely will not be understood by this council, frankly, until we move to the audit that we approved in the 2019 budget. That's was a lot of discussion. You got a very quick summary of a heck of a lot of discussion there. On new business, one of the issues as we look at these insurance policies that was brought up at Real Property is the need for businesses that are not leased at the marina but are operating with the marina as a base, such as a charter boat that launches, claims the marina as their place of business, but is not a subtenant of any of our tenants, should they be compliant to the same insurance requirements of any other tenant, and that they create the same liabilities for the city. And I believe we're still investigating that. Douglas? Marie?
This is something that we started working with the former city attorney, so I look forward to working with you.
Exactly. Yeah. Welcome.
Thanks, Julia.
But, that one, there was no action on that specific item, but just an understanding that, should, people be granted a business license and they're operating out of the marina, should they have the same insurance requirements placed on them as any other tenant? We had a discussion on the derelict or abandoned properties. I've had several residents, as I'm sure the city administration has, with complaints, and the discussion was merely a general discussion of what constitutes derelict or abandoned properties, and we charted city administration really to look into it further. Is it a livability issue where we could enforce a little stricter, or without being overzealous? Because as it was explained to the Real Property Committee, post-storm we have a potential for a lot of abandoned properties, and we don't want to get in a mode of not using common sense, and all of a sudden we have an overabundance of abandoned properties. But what constitutes a truly derelict or abandoned property? And that was just left for consideration for the city to further look at. We had discussions, as you might imagine, on the non-conforming use ordinance. So there has been discussion, and I'll ask procedurally the best way to move forward with this tonight, but around a new ordinance sunsetting the non-conforming use of SR 1, 2, and 3 properties. And the intention there was we were not going to permit commercial overflow into...
Not parking. Parking?
Parking.
Okay.
Specifically parking, but the overflow into such areas as the Citadel Beach House as Wild Dunes built a hotel. The problem with that was discussed at length is when we or should we pass an ordinance restricting it for the Citadel, it applies to all like properties. So we may have a lot of unintended consequence by doing that. It was recommended, and this was discussed both at Real Property and also with City Administration post Real Property, that if the goal of this council is to work out agreement with the Citadel relative to the hotel construction, that we try to work out agreement between the Citadel and Low Corporation Destination Resorts rather than a broad-based approach at this point. So we'll move that back to Real Property. And I believe I need to make a motion to do that. Is that correct?
But this is on our agenda for later, and it's the same exact thing that we're going to be talking about.
Right. So you want to do it now, or you want to do it later?
Well, this,
If I may?
Yes,
It
ma'am.
would be better to do it later.
I'm okay with that.
Later on the agenda.
Okay.
but you're hitting the nail on the
Yeah,
head.
so again, and maybe we can shorten the length of discussion on the next item, is, you know, honestly, we're trying to avoid unintended consequences, so we're not having to issue more parking booklets and everything else that's associated with it. So I'll leave that for further discussion at that time. And, oh, you're not raising your hand, you're just stretching.
Oh, no, I'm not raising
Go
my
ahead.
hand.
With that concludes the report of Real Property Committee. We had originally said we were not meeting in August. We are actually meeting at 4 p.m. on August 6th. Thank you.
Great report. Thank you very much. That's a hard report to give. Moving on to reports from city officers, boards, commissions, accommodations, tax advisory committee.
There is an item under Real Property Committee.
Oh,
that I would
signs.
report on. Actually, this should have been placed under public safety, so that is a miss on our part. But this is, reporting the results of RFP 2018-03, the fabrication and installation of the signs associated with the changes that you all approved for this year. We opened bids on Monday, the July 23rd, and you all received a bid tabulation from me earlier this week. We don't need a motion to approve. This is budgeted, and it's under $25,000, so I can enter into this agreement with A&H Company. This is the same company that worked with the city for the inaugural season and also for the second year changes, so we have a good experience with them and a good relationship, and I've already talked to them, and they're eager to get started on this project.
And we want the signs done.
Yes.
So, do we need a motion?
You don't need a motion. I
Okay.
just wanted to report.
Let's get them going. Thank you.
The total amount of the contract for the record is $13,500.
Which is way under the next bid.
Yes, the other bid was $34,335.
Good. Great, thank you. Okay, moving on. Reports from city officers, boards, commissions. Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee had no meeting in July. Board of Zoning Appeals, minutes are attached. Planning Commission, minutes are attached. Reports from special or joint committees, none. Petitions received, referred, and disposed of, none. Bills already in possession. Second reading, ordinance 2018-11. This is an ordinance to provide consistency with the procurement code related to approval of appropriations and expenditures. This is more of a housekeeping than anything else, and it's something that we ratified back in February 2017. I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
And waive the reading.
And waive the reading. Anybody else? Questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Pass. All right. Ordinance 2018-12, procurement. This is competitive procurement requirements to delete reference to the state budget and control board.
Motion to approve.
Second?
And
Second.
waive the reading.
And waive the reading. Ever a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor? Say aye. Nays? Passes unanimously. 2018-13, impervious surfaces. This is where it starts getting juicy here. Planning Commission
Juicy.
explored many options, including requiring all paving to be pervious, lowering the limits of how much pervious surfacing is allowed, but ultimately, they have chosen to recommend improvements to the existing ordinances dealing with adding fill to lots and how pervious surfaces are calculated. At this time, no action is required since this ordinance requires a public hearing, which will be done at our next council meeting.
Okay.
Is there anything that Douglas Haynes, add to this?
Do you want any more detail
No.
now? Or you want
We'll wait. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Introduction of new bills, resolutions, and proclamations. All right, Randy, get ready.
Excuse me, Mayor. I'm sorry, just for ordinance 2018-13, we would like to have a motion to defer until the next city council meeting.
Do I hear a
So
motion
moved.
to defer? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Nays? All right. Now back on to our introduction of bills, first reading by title only. Now this is the ordinances for providing parking requirements for use of off-street parking spaces in SR1, SR2, SR3 districts. As Randy said, this could have at the meeting, the stated intention was to restrict commercial overflow parking in non-conforming lots within residential communities, particularly Wild Dunes overflow parking at Citadel Beach Club. The ordinance presented would have repercussions that would impact the Exchange Club, the Lutheran Retreat, Methodist Church, etc. This ordinance would no longer have the flexibility to allow vehicles to park in the lot, which are not necessarily attending an event on the site. This ordinance also presents enforceability challenges. The city does not always know when an event is being held at these locations, and plus in the past the city has used these parking at the Citadel Beach Club after we're rebuilding Station 2. Randy brought it up earlier, and I think this is something that I don't think we need to go forward on. I think we're talking to the Wild Dunes and to the Citadel, because if we create a new ordinance, it's going to cause other problems further down the road. And there's two ordinances here, 2018-14 parking requirements for off-street parking, 2018-15 creation of non-conforming use. So again, as Randy said, I think unintended consequences is not what we want to do by creating more ordinances.
I move to defer.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Are we deferring indefinitely?
Well, I think we're looking at other options, so I think we're deferring it indefinitely.
Point of clarification.
Yes, sir. No, it's great.
Mayor,
good point.
if I may.
Yes, sir.
We don't have a lot of options, so just so everybody, sort of understands where this came through real property. Right now, there is an intention of Wild Dunes to use the Citadel for parking construction worker vehicles. We have no ability to restrict that. So the intention here originally was to sunset the nonconformance of the Citadel so that post, as Councilman Buchanan brought up the last time, post certificate of occupancy, that we would have an assurance that we wouldn't continue to have that particular property as overflow. Because there is a belief, and certainly belief in Real Property Committee, that there are not enough parking places being allotted to a new hotel that we have no control over. So my discussion has been that we may resurrect this later, and we might have to look at those unintended consequences if we can't come to agreement between the Citadel and Wild Dunes to abide by the request of the residents in that area to not start engaging in overflow conduct outside of Wild Dunes, and the fact that, frankly, they've packed a lot of commercial activity into a very small area. Did that help?
Yeah, that well put. Well put. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to report that we have had conversations with both the Citadel Beach House management team and also Wild Dunes, and they have both said that they have heard the message loud and clear and are not planning on even considering using that lot for overflow parking after construction is completed. We will try to maybe we can have some sort of memorandum of understanding, an agreement that it's a little bit more binding, but we do not anticipate having any issues associated with this parking situation.
That's great news. Thank you. Okay.
You need to vote.
Do we need
to vote on the deferment?
Okay.
On the deferment.
Voting on the deferment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays? Everything tonight has been 9-0. Wonderful. Miscellaneous business. Adoption of a resolution to support and approve Carter fiscal year 19 budget. Mr. Ward.
First, I'll make to open this up for discussion. I might make a motion to approve the proposed budget for fiscal year 19 for Carter.
Second.
Also, I think it's in your packages for revenues, $38,121,701. True budget, balanced budget fashion. They have expenditures at the exact same number. I'll be glad to talk to you about any line items in the proposed budget. and variances from the previous year if need be. Anytime you'd like to call me. So, that's it.
Question. Any money from the city of Isle of Palms?
Nope.
We have a...
Well, indirectly. We get the sales tax from Charleston County is pretty significant. It's almost a third of the budget.
We have an official here from the Carter, and if she would like to say anything, I would love to have you come up, and you've been here all night long, patiently listening to us. As have these scouts.
My name is Andrea Kozlowski. I'm the Deputy Director of the BCD Council of Governments, and the COG has taken over administration of CARTA in the past 2 years. This year in your packet, we provided you a pretty detailed cover memo that just describes line by line the budget, any changes, all of the progress that we've made since taking over the system. We've improved the technology on board and off board at all the stops. We're looking forward to next fiscal year opening the Intermodal Center on right off of Rivers Avenue. That ribbon cutting should occur in February, which has been a long time coming, so we're very excited about that project. Also, we'll be moving forward with the Low Country Bus Rapid Transit Project, which will move people from Somerville to downtown. There'll be several stops in between, however, it will be an express service just to get people from Somerville to downtown. And we will be meeting with Mr. Ward next week to talk about the shuttle from Mount Pleasant to the Isle of Palms. So we're very excited of moving forward with that project as well. If anybody has any questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for staying with us tonight. Mr. Ward, was that a motion you made?
Yes, sir.
And I heard a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? 9-0 again. Miscellaneous business. Again, second part, adoption of a resolution supporting the elimination of all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls. I will read the first paragraph and then we can forego the reading because it's in your packets. A resolution supporting the elimination of all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls, promoting the health and safety of women and girls, and supporting their being afforded equal academic, economic, social, cultural, and business opportunities in the city of Isle of Palms, expressing the support for individual cities, passing resolutions and ordinances to implement the principles of the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women at the local level, providing an effective date of July 24th, 2018.
I make a motion to adopt the resolution.
And here a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. Moving forward here, we have a public hearing at 5:45 on Tuesday, August the 28th, for our previous parking. And we have our next council meeting at 6 p.m., August the 28th. And we have no need for executive session. And do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, the gentleman from Scouts, thank y'all for being here. If y'all want to come up, trouble, we'll shake your hand for being here.